I woke up to the truth of the flat earth, shape of the earth, as an engineer and a pilot. So I've studied engineering, physics, 3 different ways: basic physics, electric physics, and construction physics. And also as a pilot, as a rotary wing pilot, that is helicopter pilot, I studied aeronautical physics as well. So I can cover and discuss just about any factor of flat earth. Not that I'm any smarter than anybody else, but I've studied quite a bit of factors that analyze shape and motion of just about any object. That's physics, also aeronautical physics, and principles of flight. I can tell you this: airplanes fly straight and level. That's even an aviation term, straight and level. Airplanes will fly for hours at the same altitude, never dipping their nose down to follow the curve of the earth. An aircraft on a 12-hour or even 18-hour flight from Portland, Oregon to Seoul, Korea, that would have that aircraft starting at one point and then flying so far around the earth that it's flying downwards with its nose vertically downwards, and then starting to go around the curve of the earth so that the airplane is now flying upside down. Would have to make that kind of a flight path on a globe, which is, it's such an absurdity. So that being said, I come into the true shape of the earth, the flat earth, as a skeptic like most anyone else. I'll tell you my story. My buddy told me about this. He said, "Rob, you need to learn about the ice ring. You need to learn that the earth doesn't move. This globe is garbage." And I laughed at him. I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm not even gonna look into that." And he said, "That's fine." He said, "That's fine. You don't have to look into flat earth. But until you do," he said, "until you do look into flat earth, you will remain a slave of the matrix." And interestingly enough, at this point, this was more or less November, December 2015. I had already mentally resigned from the U.S. military for 3 years. I had already resigned because of Benghazi. I realized, and I saw for myself, I'd been working with U.S. as an Army officer, working for State Department for a good 10 years. And so what I did, I turned my physics awareness, I turned my studies into analysis of the shape of the earth. Radar is simply another form of radio transmission. Radio includes anything within the range of the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum, also known as light. Radio is the transmission of light, whether it's visible light or radio waves which are not visible. When it comes to radio transmissions, there must be a transmitter and a receiver. There can be a reflector or a transmittal unit along the way. However, in the end, there's got to be at least transmitter and a receiver. And in the case of radar, radar transmits a signal and it bounces off a reflector, and then it comes back to the receiving station. Or it can go to other stations if they're set up in the network properly. Long story short, radar emits a signal, it bounces off something, and then it returns to a receiving unit, and the receiving unit maps that reflection accordingly. If there is no reflector, then there's no return signal, and then the object does not show up on the radar. For example, it's off the screen. Notice, there's no curving around anything. It goes out in a straight line. Radio signals always travel in a straight line. So the transmitter sends the signal out to the target, bounces off, and it comes back in a straight line. Radar cannot travel over the curve, and hence radar is dependent on line of sight, direct beam from the transmission to the target. It reflects and it comes straight back. There is no curving around anything, thus is radar. The fact proven from multiple points that there is no Coriolis to the motion of the earth. And I'm speaking from a pilot's perspective, also an engineer's perspective, because I obtained a degree as an engineer before I went to flight school. So I'm both a pilot and engineer at once. So number one, there is no rotation of the earth, proven by the fact that a helicopter pilot can hover the aircraft indefinitely, motionless, above a single point of the Earth. If the Earth were spinning, as soon as that aircraft left the ground, the Earth would spin out from under it. Now, somebody may say that the air of the atmosphere rotates along with the Earth, which is one of the most absurd concepts imaginable, because if that were the case, then all wind would travel with the Earth. There would be no alternating wind currents when we know that the jet streams fly overhead, clouds move in multiple directions overhead, and a kite flying over the stationary Earth. The fact that a kite flies because of wind passing through, that proves that the Earth does not, that proves that the air does not move in unison with the Earth. Number 2, airstrips do not rotate away from a landing aircraft. Anybody who's seen a pilot's view when an aircraft lands, well, the aircraft lands to a motionless airstrip. If the Earth were rotating, the pilot would have to turn to the angle at which the airstrip is rotating away and land at the speed of the airstrip, which is absurd, simply absurd. Airstrips do not rotate away from the aircraft, and on an east to west landing strip, if the aircraft is landing to the west, the airstrips do not land moving towards the airplane. That's insanity. Okay, simply stated. I've done many of them personally. I've flown more than 1,070 hours in both helicopters and airplanes, and I will tell you factually that aircraft meet their checkpoints, they take off, they meet their checkpoints, and they land exactly as planned on a flat stationary map. No pilot, I say again, no pilot has ever accommodated for the rotation of the Earth when planning flights and takeoff to checkpoints along the way, and then landing. Pilots can plan so well that they can take off and land hundreds of miles away down to within 30 seconds of their planning, because the Earth simply does not rotate.
Oh, wait.